Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Accessible Globe TV News. First, Australia and the bushfires. Australia is going through its worst bushfire season on record. If we take a quick look at the graph, you can see that in the 2009 Black Saturday fires, 450,000 hectares were destroyed. This year, to this point, over 10 million hectares have been destroyed. Now, if we look at some of the other bushfires in 2019, there was the Amazon fires, 890,000 hectares, and the Siberian fires at 2.7 million hectares, so 10 million shows the absolute devastation that Australia is going through at this time. Now, for people with disabilities, and in particular people with mobility impairment, they're often left in a more vulnerable position. Both the evacuation centres and the emergency accommodation are often just not able to offer an acceptable solution. Kerry Williams from Accessible Accommodation Australia recognised the seriousness of the situation and decided to do something about it.
We've got about 12,500 followers since launching about 11 months ago, and part of that is a group called the Accessible Group. So it's on Facebook and it's about 3,000 members. And on Saturday, I realised very quickly that major organisations like the NDIS weren't quite necessarily prepared for such an immediate response. And we were getting calls left, right and centre saying, you know, we're being evacuated, not sure where to go. Can you recommend accessible accommodation? So we thought, well, we've got a group, very engaged, 3,000 members, and why not use that resource to put a call out to people to open up their own homes, as well as holiday accommodation and hotels, etc. We're simply the conduit connecting people who have a property available to someone who is being evacuated and needs somewhere to go. So we're the link to that.
You've had the Red Cross and all sorts of people reach out, haven't you?
Correct. So, Red Cross, NDIS, ideas.org, basically it just, once it started, it just ballooned and it just compounded, and we just got so many people referring each other, and we're doing the same. If it's not related to accommodation, for example, equipment, we've been able to refer them to people. That was
Kerry Williams talking about the ongoing bushfire crisis in Australia. She's doing a marvellous job, and you'll be able to see her full interview in an upcoming Spin program on difficulties faced by people with disabilities in emergency situations. We're heading to the UK now, where disabled Londoners may receive free travel passes for their carers under plans revealed to make the capital more accessible. The Mayor vowed to introduce a companion pass that would allow a relative, friend or carer to travel free on the tube, bus and rail network when with a disabled person. The pledge is the first of Sadiq Khan's re-election campaign. He would instruct the TfL to start work on introducing the pass on day one of his second term. The mayoral election is on May 7. About 180,000 people already qualify for a disability person's freedom pass, but may find it difficult to get around unaccompanied. Only 78 tube stations are currently step-free, and Mr Khan's plans to increase this to more than 100 is behind schedule. Just 10 stations have gone step-free since he was elected in 2016. Mr Khan said, "I want to ensure that the capital is inclusive and affordable in the way of travel." The companion pass is intended to make a big difference to disabled Londoners. Now we move to Japan and we focus on the Olympics, both the able-bodied Olympics and the Paralympics. When it comes to tickets, next year's Tokyo Paralympics will be just like the able-bodied Olympics. You see, there is more demand than tickets. The interest is there and we're absolutely delighted, International Paralympic President Andrew Parsons told the Associated Press in an interview. It shows clearly that the appetite for the Paralympic Games is there in Tokyo and in Japan. Parsons said there were 3.1 million tickets requested earlier this year in the first lottery phase. This exceeds the 2.3 million available. About 600,000 tickets were awarded in the first lottery, and another lottery is set for early this year. Tokyo organisers allowed Parsons to release the demand figures on Tuesday. Organisers have yet to specify the level of demand for the able-bodied Olympics, which is believed to be at least 10 times oversupply and maybe more. The scarcity of tickets has angered some fans and the general public and is a sensitive topic for organisers who also face pressures for tickets for sponsors, international federations, national Olympic committees and authorised ticket resellers. The Paralympic athletes will be competing in packed stadiums, which is absolutely fantastic for the message we want to send the world, Parsons said. And from my point of view, I just think it's fantastic that those stadiums are going to be full and people are going to be able to see some of the best sporting events the globe has to offer. And we'll be featuring a lot of the triumphs and the sad stories, everything to do with the Paralympics in Accessible Globe TV Sports. Now, a world first. Visually impaired people often have a problem in travelling, or that's the way I perceive it. I often wonder what it's like to be travelling in a car when you're visually impaired and not being able to look around and see out of the window and enjoy just what's around, the scenery and so on. Well, apparently, thanks to Ford, that experience is about to change in a very positive way. Called Feel the View, it was conceived and developed by Ford and GTB in Italy in collaboration with a local startup called Addio, which creates devices for the visually impaired. It works by creating the sensation of sight through 255 vibrations sent through a vehicle's window glass that hands can feel and interpret. All you have to do is press the button and the device takes a picture of the scenery. The picture is converted to a high contrast monogram image and then converted to a grayscale where the machine can translate every shade of grey into a unique vibration of varying intensity on the car window. This allows the visually impaired to feel the scenery by making out details and depth through touch, essentially being able to rebuild the landscape in their minds. Another neat touch is an integrated virtual assistant that can help add context to the image by saying keywords about the image through the car speakers. Let's check it out.
We developed a new language to give people who can't see a landscape the chance to feel it. We created a device designed for the visually impaired that transmits up to 255 levels of vibrations on the car window. The built-in camera takes a picture of the view. The picture is then converted into a grayscale image. Every shade of grey is translated into a vibration of different intensity on the car window, allowing the blind to visually experience the surrounding landscape. Also, an integrated vocal assistant connected to the car's audio system by an online artificial intelligence helps them to put the image into context.
Montagna innevata.
The White Collection Bridal Boutique in Portishead, UK has been making quite an impression by featuring a mannequin in a wheelchair front and centre in their store window. Sporting an elegant and beautiful wedding dress designed for ease of use in a wheelchair, this long overdue event has actually gone viral. Now, while many people have been saying this should have happened years ago, I personally am just very happy that it's happening right now. There's even been tweets, this one from Callie, and she said this: "The dress looks beautiful this way, the way the fabric falls. Probably wouldn't have even given the dress a second thought if it was on an upright model. Goes to show that diversity only boosts sales." Now that's something we very much believe here at Accessible Globe TV. It's all about getting it out there and letting people see what's available, and that will make sales and make money for the businesses. Now, just as an aside, I will be letting you know that we'll be catching up with Laura in an incoming edition of The Spin, which focuses on inclusive fashion. As a side note, This is not the first store to feature wheelchairs in fashion. This photo was taken in Japan on Twitter from Abba Wabaz, that's ABBAWABBAZ, and we think it's great that that was in a store in Japan also. Well, that's about it for Accessible Globe TV News this week. We thank you very much for joining us on our second edition, and we hope to see you again next week when we feature more news for people with PWD, and we'll see you then.